My name is Ray Stapleton. I'm manager of Lullymore Heritage Park. We've been in existence since 1993, formed by a local group, so we're having an impact already, but there's a lot more we can do. We really want to spread the message of educating people about the history of this area, Midlands in general, and the importance of the peatlands.
At the moment, that's the devastation. If we stood here before Bordemona came, you wouldn't see any of those hills. We'd be standing about, well, the average bog was 33 feet high. So you'd be standing about 20 foot higher, looking out at those bogs there. Bordemona are basically wind development, they're looking at solar, they're looking at lots of different things. So that land bank is, that's been all planned for future. No one knows what's going to happen to that.
If you want to commercially harvest peat, you need a licence from us, right? Now, we at the moment have only licensed Bordemona, and Bordemona are no longer draining new bogs and getting new licences. They're on the way out of that activity.
Bordemona own less bog than Coláiste. Coláiste own more bog. So, like Ireland, 1/5 of Ireland is peatland based. So we've got responsibility worldwide. It was nearly a patriotic duty in the 30s and 40s and 50s to be helping Bordemona. But that doesn't get away. That's a political thing. It gave people jobs. It was brilliant, socially, economically. But for the environment, an absolute disaster. The industrial burning of turf was going on for years. That was vast quantities. Like one family could, say a local family, they could use a small plot, and it could be a quarter of an acre, and that could be in their family for generations. So yeah, it isn't good for the environment, they're burning turf, but it's vastly different, and I think that's not well known, of comparing it to the industrial extraction of peat. We've done for decades. That one area of peat that a family might have taken turf from for 100 years could be gone in a matter of half a day. It's easier to victimise. Like there should be a clear distinction. Families that are locally using it, the next generation won't be using turf the same way. It's the way they're building houses now. They're not going to be using as much solid fuels. The energy crisis hit us really hard before the Christmas, and it's really real for people. But believe me, the biodiversity climate crisis will get very real. Maybe not for our generation, but for next generations. There's no returning back, so we should be doing all we can now. Environmentally, if it goes the way it should go, like Ireland could have one of the biggest rewilding projects, definitely in Europe, the world. Less than 1% of our bog is untouched, unaffected. Yeah, we've done a serious amount of damage generationally. In the last 10 years, communities are showing much more ability to rewild their own areas, re-wet. There was governmental support and industry was supporting it. This could be rolled out extremely quickly over huge areas. So if you're talking about biodiversity loss, it'd be a huge counter to that, like incredibly. You've got huge habitats that humans wouldn't actually interact with, so you'd have real wild spaces. That little piece of equipment there, that's carbon flux, so we're working with Trinity and UCC and different ones. They're measuring the amount of carbon being released, so we're doing it. That's on a reclaimed grassland, which seemingly is, early results are showing that it's a pretty high carbon emitter because you're adding nitrogen and different fertilisers to the soil. There's plants that really benefit from animals grazing on it, like there's devil's bit scabious. It's a purple flower, but the animals won't go near it. It'll flower in May and June and July, but butterflies like the marsh fritillary need that, and without that, basically they're really endangered. So if you didn't have the horses grazing here, they won't be able to grow because other foliage would be covering them,
There's huge knowledge gaps about bug declines. The figures, I guess, are based on the small number of insect species that we do have long-term trends for. The insects that we are monitoring seem to be overwhelmingly in decline. Some of the more dramatic studies found that the biomass of flying insects had fallen by 76% in 26 years. So there's a whole bunch of things driving insect declines. Habitat loss, we're still chopping down and burning down rainforests in the tropics and draining peat bogs and destroying basically wildlife-rich habitats around the world. And a lot of that's being destroyed to make room for more and more intensive farming, big monocultures of crops, which support basically almost no wildlife at all. And that kind of farming is very much associated with lots of chemical inputs, including pesticides, many of which are designed to kill insects. So we spray the landscape over and over again with insect poison. So we shouldn't really be surprised. It's a whole kind of mishmash, if you like, a kind of perfect storm of problems that we've created for insects. It's completely crazy that we still cut peat out of the ground. I mean, as soon as we dig it up, it starts to oxidize and degrade and get turned to carbon dioxide. So all the peat that comes out of the ground is eventually going to be contributing to climate change. And peat bogs, as well as being an amazing carbon store, and with the capacity to store more carbon if we look after them, they're also this kind of unique habitat that supports this huge diversity of really weird and wonderful invertebrates, insects and spiders and so on, all sorts of species of dragonflies and rare plants that only live on peat bogs. So I mean, and most of the trade in peat is simply for gardening, which, you know, it's not exactly life and death. We don't have to have peat in our gardens, and it just seems such a trivial reason to be destroying this amazing habitat and contributing to climate change.
There is hope for the future. If you re-wet these peatlands, they can become very biodiverse places and host a huge amount of biodiversity.
We just need to restore our peat bogs, stop digging them up, remove any drainage that's been put in so that the water level starts to rise, and then those peat bogs will naturally regenerate. They'll start to lock up more carbon, the peat layer will slowly grow, the wildlife will return. You know, it's as simple as that. We just need to stop doing such dumb things.